Let's move on to the concept of the three facial zones, a key idea in traditional face reading. Our face is divided into three zones. The upper zone is the area from the eyebrows upward, the forehead. The middle zone spans from the eyebrows down to the tip of the nose. This zone represents the core of our life. It reflects the most crucial period. While the upper and lower zones also carry meaning, they're not as vital as the middle zone. This is the heart of one's life journey. If you look closely, the middle zone contains several key features that come in pairs. The cheeks and nose form one pair, the eyes and eyebrows another, and then there's the ears as well. This zone reflects both listening and observing. The ears listen, the eyes observe. It reveals our willpower and inner strength, as well as our personality, which is shown through the shape and structure of the eyebrows. This zone holds it all. It reflects our desires, our drive to live and move forward. The nose and eyes reveal our inner motivation, the quiet force that pushes us from within. Meanwhile, the cheeks show the outward expression of that drive, often tied to ambition and desire. All of this belongs to the middle zone, which represents our youth and middle age, the most active, dynamic stage of life. The upper zone corresponds to our early years, our childhood and adolescence. The forehead houses the brain, so it symbolizes intellect and mental capacity. The nose, on the other hand, represents career and effort. It reflects our willpower, our drive to succeed. In traditional face reading, the nose also speaks about one's spouse. Especially in the case of a woman, it often reflects her husband's qualities and fate. For women, in traditional thought, marrying well was seen as a major part of their career. That's why the nose was believed to represent both career and husband. So traditionally, when reading a man's nose, people looked for signs of his career path. When reading a woman's, they looked for clues about her future husband. But today that view no longer holds true, because women are rising, building careers, and leading lives on their own terms. The nose now reflects personal drive and ambition, regardless of gender. When the nose reflects ambition and enterprise, it points to career. But when it leans toward matters of family, it relates more to marriage and children. The lower zone, which includes the mouth, philtrum, chin, and jawline, represents the later years of life, typically from around age 51 onward. There are two main ways to read the lower zone. One view is that if this area is well formed, it suggests a peaceful, fortunate old age, good health, harmonious relationships, and the support of children and community. But if the lower zone appears weak or imbalanced, it may point to a lonely or difficult later life, one marked by struggles, isolation, or declining health. That's one of the key perspectives in traditional face reading. The second way to view the lower zone is through the lens of cause and effect. The middle zone, your youth and middle age, reflects nearly 30 years of effort, striving, and choices. If during that time your efforts were guided by ethics and wisdom, then naturally, the lower zone, your later years, will reflect that goodness. It will age well, not just in appearance, but in life's outcomes. A strong lower zone becomes the fruit of a life lived with integrity. No matter what the lower zone looks like, whether the chin is small, a little off-center, or the teeth are slightly misaligned, it's not a big deal. What truly matters is how you've lived during your middle years. If in that time you've worked with integrity, done good and built up merit, then the later years will take care of themselves. You'll be surrounded by family, cherished by friends, and enjoy a long, fulfilling life. So which perspective truly holds weight? Take someone with a beautifully shaped lower face, yet they've spent their entire life doing harm. Often people like that don't even live to see old age. By the time they're in their late 40s, life may already have caught up with them. Trouble with the law, major downfall, even tragic ends. They never make it to the stage that lower zone represents. That's why the karmic view, reading life through cause and effect, is often more accurate than judging by appearances alone. Let's look at the board. The upper zone, the forehead, represents our childhood and early years. But even before that, there's a phase that comes before the upper zone. It's the time of drawing the child in, the moment when a soul is drawn toward being born. In spiritual teachings, this is seen as the pull of karma from a past life, the unseen force that brings a being into existence. After that soul is drawn in and enters the womb, it's born into childhood. That's the phase represented by the upper zone. Then, as the child grows and reaches their 20s, they enter the stage of youth and middle age, which is reflected in the middle zone. This includes the nose, cheeks, eyes, eyebrows, and ears, all the key features that express a person's strength, character, and life momentum during those vital years. A person's fate unfolds gradually across the zones of the face. The eyebrows correspond roughly to ages 31 to 34. The eyes reflect the period from 35 to 40. The nose and cheeks, they represent the key stage from 41 to 50. Then after age 50, we enter the phase of later life, from around 51 to 75 years old, the so-called final chapter. But remember, these numbers aren't absolute. They're just guidelines, flexible markers. Life doesn't always follow exact lines, and these stages can shift depending on the individual. So how can we shape our destiny during those early years? From the time we're just a few years old, all the way through our teens, and even into our 20s or early 30s. That's the formative window. It's the time when we're still learning, still stepping into the world, still figuring out who we are. That's why environment matters more than anything. Parents need to be role models. Teachers need to be role models. Even the neighborhood, the community around us, needs to be a place of goodness and integrity. Because all of that shapes the direction of a child's early life. It determines where their childhood leads, and what kind of person they'll grow up to become. Someone may be born with a beautiful, well-balanced face, a naturally harmonious appearance. But if they're placed in a toxic environment, especially one their parents didn't choose wisely, everything can fall apart. Imagine growing up in a neighborhood filled with drugs, surrounded by heroin addicts. By the time that child turns 15, addiction may already have taken hold, and from there, the road often leads only to suffering or even death. That's why childhood is deeply shaped by environment. No matter how good the potential, the wrong surroundings can derail everything. A three treasures environment. What does that mean? If you're curious, find the answer in the Course Right View, One Awakening Life's Meaning. It's available online, and it's a foundational class that explores these deep teachings. Now moving into the stage of youth and middle age, this is when you begin to stand on your own. You've stepped out of the family shelter, started working, maybe for a few years already. You begin to build a life of your own, getting married, having children. This is the phase of self-maturity. To truly mature, to grow from within, you need to understand what actually leads to real growth. That means training and developing your three roots. These are the foundation of conscious, intentional living. They guide your every decision, every action. The three roots are morality, wisdom, perseverance. Together, they shape your character and your future. Anyone who cultivates these three roots, morality, wisdom, and perseverance, will naturally experience a smooth and fulfilling middle phase of life. Success and happiness both flow from this foundation. But if you stray from the three roots, if your efforts lack morality or clarity or inner strength, you might still achieve success, but it will be empty without true happiness. Only when all three are present can both success and happiness arrive together. And if you want to deeply understand what these three roots are, be sure to check out the course Right View 1. In old age, during the final stage of life, there are generally two outcomes. The first is living peacefully, supported by your children. This happens when you've accumulated enough merit, when you've lived well and raised your children with care. But there's also another outcome. Some parents hope to rely on their children only to be rejected, cast out of their own homes. Why? Because their past actions lacked virtue, and they failed to teach or guide their children properly. By the time we grow old, they might speak nicely, but then quietly sell the house and push us out. All they really wanted was our assets. That happens when we haven't taught our children well, when we failed to guide them toward what's right. In the end, we create our own karma. We gave birth, but also planted the seeds for future harm. Then there are those rare few who in old age live with true peace and freedom. They're content whether they have children or not. They're at ease living in a full house, or completely alone. This kind of calm, self-sufficient life is rare, but it's a sign of deep inner strength and clarity. This kind of person, peaceful and self-sufficient in old age, doesn't get there by accident. During their middle years, they've trained deeply in the three roots: morality, wisdom, and perseverance. Especially, they've spent time in meditation again and again. And the more they practice, the more that sense of calm and freedom naturally arises. So ask yourself, when you grow old, which path sounds better? Living off your children or living in peaceful independence? That choice is yours. Now let's take a closer look. Take a look at the face of the Dalai Lama. Is it square or round? Is it sharp and angular or soft and curved? It's round, right? Whenever features are round and smooth, they carry the qualities of the yin: gentleness, harmony, kindness, and humility. In face reading, soft curved lines are signs of a gentle, compassionate nature. Square features reflect strength, decisiveness, and firmness. Now think about Obama. Does he have sharp square features or a softer oval-shaped face? His face is more oval, which falls into the round category. That tells us something. Both he and the Dalai Lama don't lean heavily toward fierce determination or aggression. Instead, their energy is more gentle, kind-hearted, and compassionate. Their strength lies in their goodness, not in harshness. That's why you'll notice, when Obama became President of the United States, he often hesitated on big, bold decisions. He had a more cautious, measured approach. But when Donald Trump took office, it was a completely different energy. Fast, forceful, decisive. Take the WHO, for example. The moment he was dissatisfied, he cut funding immediately, said it one day and acted the next. That's because Donald Trump's face has those strong, square features. His eyebrows grow upward, against the natural direction. Obama's eyebrows, on the other hand, grow downward, in a soft, flowing line. Eyebrows that grow upward or in scattered, jagged directions often reflect a fierce, rebellious personality. So if you ever see someone with unruly or upward sweeping brows, chances are they've got a bold, headstrong nature to match. That's why when someone plays the character of Zhang Fei, they always draw his eyebrows to grow sharply upward, because his personality was rebellious and headstrong. That visual cue helps express who he was. On the other hand, a round, harmonious, kind-looking face naturally creates warmth and connection. It makes it easier to build bonds and unite a team. People with these kinds of features, soft, rounded, gentle, tend to naturally create goodwill and bring people together. They have an innate quality of kindness and harmony. But because they lean heavily toward yin energy, they often lack yang, the fiery, decisive edge. That's why they may struggle when strong, bold action is needed. They may have determination, but that inner resolve doesn't always translate into fierce, decisive action. It's like something is missing at the very end. They can't quite carry it through with full force. That's why, in these cases, it's wise to pair them with someone who carries more yang energy, someone with a square face or rugged, angular features, especially if they're competent. That balance makes the team much stronger. But be careful, the yang person you bring in must also be capable. If they're strong-willed but incompetent, they'll cause more harm than good. Determined but clueless. That's a recipe for destruction. The key is finding someone who not only has that assertive, decisive energy, but also knows what they're doing. When you combine that with someone gentle, wise, and well-liked, you get a truly balanced and powerful team.